Zanjan province, teams working for Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps have spent weeks combing fields and villages for the deadly remnants of a blow that was meant to break the country's infrastructure and its will. What they describe is not a tidy battlefield cleanup, but a massive, painstaking effort to find and neutralize unexploded ordnance. Everything from tiny bomblets scattered like shrapnel to bunker-busting bombs the size of small houses. The IRGC said its specialized explosive ordnance teams located more than 9,500 bomblets, dismantled scores of rockets and missiles that failed to detonate, and recovered multiple high-value weapons that Western militaries reserve for the most hardened targets. Those claims, coming from an IRGC public relations statement, named 3 massive ordnance penetrators, the GBU, 5-7 bunker busters, among the finds. The MOPE is among the most powerful conventional weapons in service, designed to punch through deep, reinforced earth and concrete. Tay-to-reach buried facilities, local clearance crews say 3 were neutralized on site and 1 intact bomb was recovered and transferred to Iranian authorities for further technical study. Teams also reported finding the remnants of long-range cruise missiles and a GBU-39 small-diameter bomb among debris they say were downed by air defenses before they could reach intended targets. If accurate, the tally points to a campaign in which large numbers of air-delivered munitions failed to explode on impact or were left buried and dormant in the ground, creating a new and dangerous battle as the fighting moved on. The IRGC's account describes aerial mine-laying operations, cluster munitions intended to contaminate civilian and strategically sensitive areas, and an aftershock of hazard that will take weeks or months to clear. According to the statement, nearly 10,000 bomblets were located and made safe, 52 rockets were destroyed where they were found, more than 10 intact missiles where they were found. More than 10 intact missiles. Air diffused and handed over for analysis, and a cruise missile and a GBU. 3-9 were among the items recovered. On its face, this reads as a catalogue of weapons that did not perform as intended, whether because fuses failed, damage during delivery prevented detonation, or defensive action brought them down prematurely. The human costs are immediate and practical. Large swaths of farmland and infrastructure are rendered unusable until end-of-day teams work through them. Families live with the threat of buried explosives, and technical intelligence, the intact weapons that were recovered, becomes a prize for any side interested in understanding the other's capabilities. At the same time as the disposal operation in Zanjan, Iran's intelligence services announced arrests tied to a series of shootings in the southern city of Kerman. Security forces said they detained a main suspect and 3 accomplices after an attack during nighttime gatherings in Azadi Square. The gatherings the authorities seize were public demonstrations condemning a US-Israeli offensive. The shooting wounded 2 men and a child. Officials described the detained group as having monarchist links and alleged foreign direction, and said firearms, hunting weapons, explosives and ammunition were seized. Iranian authorities framed the arrests as preventative, dismantling a network before it could spread violence or further destabilize the area. Taken together, the narrative that emerges from Tehran is twofold: a domestic law and order line about thwarting subversives, and a wartime claim that major US munitions litter the landscape, some of them intact enough to be collected and studied. Both messages are useful to a government under strain. One demonstrates internal control. The other projects resilience against an adversary that Tehran insists has not achieved its objectives. The wider diplomatic picture is no less unsettled. In Washington, the White House dispatched 2 of President Donald Trump's op envoys to Islamabad as part of an effort, officials said, to restart fragile ceasefire talks with Tehran. The envoys named by the administration were Jared Kushner, who serves as a special envoy for peace missions, and Steve Witkoff, who is working as a special envoy to the Middle East. Their planned visit was presented as a step toward talks that could, in theory, defuse a conflict that by late February and into March had moved from tense exchange into open, deadly strikes. But the trip was abruptly cancelled after initial planning, and that reversal has only deepened confusion about how and whether diplomacy will move forward. Speaking on camera, President Donald Trump addressed the withdrawal of his envoys and framed the decision in blunt transactional terms. President Donald Trump said, "You probably heard that we cancelled the trip. We have all the cards. We're not going to spend 15 hours in airplanes all the time, going back and forth to be giving a document that was not goo be enough. And so we'll deal by telephone and they can call us anytime they want. The tone of those remarks was part exasperation, part performance. A leader stressing leverage and a message to other governments that the United States is not prepared to expend time and political capital on talks it views as unproductive. President Donald Trump said again, we have all the cards, they have no military left, practically. They have no leaders left. We don't know who the leaders are. Nobody knows who the leaders are. Nobody knows who the leaders are. Very importantly, those lines echoed a broader narrative emanating from the White House that the balance of power is in America's favor. An argument used to justify both restraint and, paradoxically, the readiness to use force. When pressed about whether US envoys should go to Pakistan to meet with Iranian officials and whether American delegates would include senior officials, the president framed the cancellations as a matter of practicality and cost. President Donald Trump said, "We're just not going to do too much traveling, takes too long, too expensive. I'm a very cost-conscious person." He contrasted the lengthy travel with me for expedient answers and said he preferred phone calls over round-the-world delegations if the outcomes were uncertain. At different moments, he added, "We haven't thought about it yet, and they can call us anytime they want." That rhetorical posture, alternately open to talks but withholding engagement, has not reassured Tehran. Iran's foreign minister, Saeed Abbas Arabchi, arrived in Islamabad for shuttle diplomacy and left Pakistan quickly, moving on to Oman and Moscow as he pressed a circuit designed to keep channels open. For Tehran, the question is simple. Does Washington want a negotiated pause, or does it hope to extract surrender by force? Arabchi's public statements in Pakistan were cautious, signaling skepticism about American intentions, even while welcoming the effort. He said, in effect, that words would need to be turned into credible action before Tehran would take a diplomatic leap of faith. The cancellation also carries political consequence at home in the United States. A leaked or published legal memorandum has further complicated public debate in Washington over the legal and political basis for USS. Military action against Iran? In late April, the State Department's legal advisor, Reed Rubenstein, issued a document laying out the department's legal rationale for the strikes launched in late February. That memo framed U.S. operations as undertaken in the exercise of the United States' inherent right of self-defense, and notably in the collective self-defense, of Israel, language that rebuts early public assertions that the move was solely an American initiative. The memo's release prompted immediate scrutiny. Lawmakers and commentators asked whether the White House had adequately informed Congress and whether the legal theory. For Rost, will withstand scrutiny under international law. Those questions are now converging with the operational facts on the ground. Weapons found in Zanjan, the arrests in Kerman, and the stop-start diplomacy that has left mediators and regional partners uncertain about next steps. The optics of all of this matter as much as the mechanics. Iran releasing images and accounts of giant bunker busters neutralized on its soil serves a narrative purpose to show that the state can and will secure its own home front. To imply that powerful strikes did not create decisive breakdowns, and to galvanize domestic support by demonstrating technical competence in explosive disposal. For Washington, the calculus is different. Presidents and administrations weigh the political cost of long, risky negotiations against the cost of appearing to accept less than decisive outcomes. That political calculus surfaces every time a president speaks about the value of leverage. In a recent exchange, Preside, CT Donald Trump was blunt about his view of who should travel and why, and again insisted a military calculus favored US leverage when he wrote, "We have all the cards, they have none." These public lines obscure as much as they reveal. Behind curt statements about travel time and leverage lie unresolved strategic questions. How to limit escalation, whether to reopen substantive talks that might address Iran's nuclear and missile programs, and how to marshal international support for either negotiations or sustained pressure. Pakistan, for its part, positioned itself as a facilitator, hosting delegations and receiving Iran's chief diplomat even as it balanced ties with both Tehran and Washington. Other regional players are watching to see which way the United States will move and whether those moves can be matched with credible incentives or deterrents. On the battlefield, or what remains of it, the technical side of warfare is taking center stage. Items turned over to Iranian authorities, intact missiles, unexploded cruise missiles, A small diameter bomb, even disarmed bunker busters, will be studied for intelligence value. Weapons that fail to detonate often reveal manufacturing marks, serial numbers, design details, and failure modes that are invaluable to engineers and analysts. That data becomes part of a broader learning process in which each side adapts to the other's tactics and technology. For civilians in Zanjan and nearby provinces, the near-term reality is more pedestrian and grim. Farms left unplanted until fields are cleared, children kept away from playgrounds and schools while end-of-day teams sweep neighborhoods, and local economies slowed by the need to cordon and secure contaminated land. Humanitarian concerns like those rarely make front-page legal briefs, but they are among the most consequential and lasting effects of a campaign that substituted massive air power for more discriminate options. On the diplomatic front, ambiguity remains the dominant. And currency. The White House says envoys remain available. They can call us anytime they want. The president said, and the Iranian foreign minister continues to tour capitals intent on keeping conversations alive. But rhetoric and deeds have diverged enough to leave both sides signaling to one another indirectly, through mediators in Islamabad and Oman, through public statements and leaks, and through legal memos that try to anchor the use of force in a defensible framework. Whether that framework will lead to a political settlement or a prolonged standoff remains unclear. The ingredients for an agreement exist on paper: mutual steps to reduce immediate threats, verification mechanisms, and international guarantees, but agreements are built from trust and leverage in roughly equal measure. At the moment, each side claims to hold more cards than the other, and neither is universally trusted to play them in good faith. The path ahead will be shaped by three practical dynamics. First, the pace and thoroughness of post-strike clearance in Iran. The more quickly civilians can return to normal life, the less domestic pressure Tehran will feel to retaliate or escalate. Second, the condition and content of recovered ordnance in tact weapons and technical intelligence could either diffuse paranoia by clarifying outcomes or fuel retaliatory narratives if they reveal escalation plans by Western militaries. The diplomatic choreography across regional capitals, if mediators can convert shuttle diplomacy into a concrete plan with timetables, the window for de-escalation might widen. If travel, timing and trust keep collapsing communication to terse public statements, the risk of miscalculation will grow. In the end, what we are witnessing is not just the aftermath of explosions, but the intersection of capability, narrative, and politics. On the ground, end of day, teams are doing the slow, dangerous work of turning hidden explosives into harmless relics. In capitals, envoys, and ministers are trying to translate uncertainty into workable talks. And in public, leaders deploy blunt phrases about cards, leverage, and costs to shake domestic and international perception. Those phrases matter because they often become the policy. For now, President Donald Trump's words, plain, repetitive, and performative, set the tone. We have all the cards, he said. They can call us anytime they want. Whether those cards will be used to bargain for a durable pause or to press for unconditional concessions will be one of the defining tests of the next weeks. Meanwhile, the smoke has barely cleared from many of the places that were struck, and the work of making those places safe again has only just begun.